So here we've got China's newest, what looks to be a stealth fighter. It's all over the internet as of today. I'm here with Bodhi, an F-16, F-4, OV-10 pilot with over 2,000 fighter hours. What do you think of this thing?
The first thing that comes to mind is it's big. I mean, that is a big fighter. The maneuverability, when you're that large, that's a big question. But it's interesting, and it's just really
right there in the back, it almost looks like lights, but that's just the sun reflecting off control surfaces, right?
It looked to me like those are similar to flaperons. They act as ailerons and flaps, would be my guess, because it doesn't have traditional aircraft surfaces.
No rudder like you would see on traditional fighters. And a delta wing like that, the engines to get that thing after you do one big turn, the energy that'll bleed off of that, you're gonna need some serious horses to get out of that type of a low energy state, right?
That wing loading, it'll turn very well for one turn, but then you're gonna quickly get behind the power curve, no matter how big those motors are. And I'm sure they're big.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're powerful. But I didn't see any thrust vectoring. I think it's a big aircraft that's gonna be a little more slow to maneuver. That's my
Gotcha.
guess.
Would you dogfight it in an F-16?
In a heartbeat. I mean, go right for the throat on that guy. But with a plane like that, you're going to have to get in close. You got to get in the phone booth with him, then you can kick his ass.
Right.
But from 30, 40 miles away, I'm sure he's got some long-range hurt he could put on you.
Absolutely, yeah. And then you saw it up there with the J-20, so that's the chase plane up there. It's got the canards, comparable to our F-22, but it's bigger and probably not as maneuverable because it's a longer aircraft. So we'll just watch the video one more time and let's compare it to the J-20 and see how that looks. So there's the Dorito-shaped jet, the JX, the JHXX, I think is what people are calling it. They're saying it's a 6th generation jet, right? So they're trying to say this thing is beyond stealthy, and a 6th generation jet is all about stealth. So anyway, we'll keep going with the J-20 comparison.
I'm sure
there you go.
Yeah. That's a great picture. Now you see just how big that is. And I'm sure it's loaded with technology. But would be my guess, it'd be more like the technology we had 15 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what I would think.
Wait, are you saying China stole technology from us and is now putting it in an airplane?
Hard to believe, isn't it? Hard to believe. But I'll guarantee you get one of our fighters, our F-16, you get in close with him, you could spank him.
Oh,
but
yeah.
you got to get in close.
You got to get in close.
Now, but with our F-22, you can go nose to nose with him any day.
Yeah.
With the longer range missiles.
Right. That's going to be the matchup with those two. It'd be the F-22. The J-20 up there, that's, some people have said it's a 5th generation fighter. I've seen close-up videos of it. It doesn't really have, a lot of the same stealth characteristics of what like an F-22 or any 5th generation fighter would have. So this new 6th generation jet might be more along the lines of a 5th gen. And this J-20 that's up there with it, likely F-22 kind of, like an F-22 look-alike that doesn't actually do what an F-22 does. So you think this new JHXX or whatever it is going to be more toe-to-toe long-range BVR with F-22?
Probably, to me, that would be his only strong point, because that plane cannot turn like our fighters. I'm sure it's good, but it can't turn like our fighters. You have a delta wing. That's what we had on our F-106s back in the 60s. Mm-hmm. Great aircraft. But that's we decided not to go any further with the delta wing technology. And it's not a pure delta wing, but it's close the way it's designed.
Right.
The absence of a tail, the stabilizer, and then the horizontal with the vertical rudder and those type things being absent. I just see it more stealthy. It wants to be unseen, but it can't dogfight. But I'll guarantee you, something that size can carry a lot of long-range missiles.
Yeah.
And it probably does not have a gun. That's a guess. I don't know.
I bet you're right. So do you think that could be something, you think it has a man in it? You think it's a manned aircraft?
Absolutely, I do.
Okay. So potentially a missile truck type scenario too, right? You sneak that thing up high. You maybe use the J-20 to lock on or whatever you need to do, and then you've got those things up there, these JXXs up there, long-range missiles going after AWACS and tankers and things like that.
Quite possibly. It could be flying above the cons and stealthy. So you're above the cons, so you're not making any contrails. Mm-hmm. And it's stealthy. Well, they could just hover around up there and then in concert with the smaller fighters, start raining down some hurt from above. that you wouldn't be expected to come from there because you didn't know he was up there.
All right, let's do a close-up now. We'll do a close-up of the fuselage of it, and we can look and see what kind of engines you think this thing has. So now we've got that image up. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I love that close-up. And you can really, and you see the whole body shape of the aircraft. So every inch of that thing is providing lift. That also provides drag when you turn. That's what makes it hard to turn. So those motors look to me like fourth generation aircraft motors. You don't see any vectored thrust. You look at the intakes, and the whole idea is that you can't have a radar look down the intakes. Our radar look down his intakes because you can tell exactly what's going on in there,
right?
And what kind of an aircraft it is. And I don't see a lot of guarding against that. So it's tough. I don't know what their primary goal of this thing is, but I think you call it stealth. That's my
yeah. So not maneuverability. Obviously, we talked about stealth, and then potentially speed. So do you think this thing could be like an SR-71, SR-72 type speed, or from looking at it, you do not think it's quite built for speed?
Well, when you look, yeah, that's a good question there. To me, it doesn't look like it's any faster than a Mach 2 fighter.
Yeah.
It's just not built for any more, but that's fast. Now now the SR-71 and
depends on who you ask.
That's true. That's true. But I mean, the motors, looking at the motors, look a little traditional, nothing exotic.
Yeah.
We've experimented with those, an F-16 that looked a little like that back in the 70s. And it was good, but we elected to go with the more traditional aircraft configuration.
It's an F-16 that had the delta wing configuration?
Yes, Okay. It was called the XL or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a great little aircraft. It could carry a lot more weight, but it couldn't dogfight nearly as well.
Right.
I mean, you get this guy in a dogfight with an F-16, it's going to be like a knife fight in a phone booth with a small person.
Yeah.
You can put a hurt on him because he's just too big. He's too big.
He's just going to be a perfect target. Did you imagine that? Just seeing that, you'd see that from 10 miles away. You'd be like, oh.
It's probably 4 times the size of an F-16. Plan form wise. It probably weighs 3 times as much.
Right.
And and
it's got a traditional pitot tube. See that pitot tube coming out the front? So that's going to be less stealthy. And then it looks like on the back, you've got some like ripples potentially along the back. Those little bubbles that kind of come out. Those might be where some of the actuators are for some of those. So they're not fully seamless. So that's going to reduce the stealth as well. And then, like you said, you got flaperons and ailerons in the back. So the very outskirt ones, would you call those ailerons, right? Since they're on the very back of the Delta, you just call all of them flaperons.
That's a good question. Because, the one view we saw of it, they only like the outer fourth of the wings were moving up and down. And usually, with a high-tech something as that is, I would think it'd be a combination of flaperons, combination of flaps and ailerons, called flaperons, like the F-16 has. Because it's just, but you can clearly see the bubbles, blisters, whatever you want to call them, where the actuators are. And if you look at our fighters, they're much smaller, because it's just a higher tech thing. So this looks like a very new aircraft, but not quite there yet. They didn't quite get all our technology to build.
Not quite yet. Give them a few more months. So we got the landing gear. Bay doors are open. Landing gear are down in this photo, and so it looks like there's going to be a significant part of that fuselage that can carry weapons. That's going to be a big weapons bay.
Quite a bit. You see now, you have your 2 engines, and you see they're a little further apart. And so that gives you a little more room throughout the bottom part of the fuselage for weapons to be tucked up in, because the motors are a little bit further apart.
Sure.
But you can only put so much in there, because towards the back end, with the afterburners going and things like that, you're not going to have weaponry back in that part. It's going to be a little more forward, about where the gear are and forward.
Gotcha.
But I don't see where you could have a gun in this one. Now, I guess you could, but I don't think this plane would be designed for that.
Yeah. Let's talk about the guy in the J-20. I picture whenever you fly a new plane, you got a guy in a tested plane, and you're kind of watching your buddy, and you're like, good luck, man. We don't know if this thing's going to fly. So the Chinese fighter pilot in the J-20 is probably like, oof, we'll see how this goes. Simulators have crashed a few times.
I can only imagine. Yeah, that's and you see that the chase plane's not that close to him.
Yeah,
So
he's keeping some distance. Like, we don't know what this thing's going to do.
What is going to happen with it.
Yeah.
And it was maneuvering so slowly and gently, you just really can get no idea of his capabilities. It was like he was coming in, setting up for a landing or something, because he was at slow speed. He wasn't high speed at all.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see. I don't see that plane going. I don't think it was built for speed as much as stealth. But you could push a plane like that with the right motors to above Mach 2.
Yeah.
I don't see it going faster than that, especially with the radome and the nose are pretty good sized up there. That's a lot of.
It almost looks like to me in the front like an F-111 where the nose cone is.
It does.
Like
now that you mentioned it, it looks exactly like that. You're right.
Yeah, so it's got elements of the F-111 up front, and then they took like the YF-23 or something from the back.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And the YF-23 was what was in competition with our Raptor RF-22. And it looked more modern or more futuristic than our F-22, but it didn't make the competition, the F-22.
All right, here's a picture of the YF-23 pulled up. So,
and you can see how, and that was an advanced aircraft. And you see it still had the rudders and the tails. These acted as both because they're at such an angle, it could give you rudder and tail, horizontal and vertical stabilization with those things. So it didn't per se have the normal configuration of two rudders up here and then tails as well.
Gotcha.
It is a combination. And that, I thought, when I was pretty young when that was designed, I thought, man, that looks beautiful.
It does look
Let's
good.
build that thing.
Yeah.
And we didn't. We switched to the F-22, which is a fantastic aircraft. But that one just looks like something out of that's Star Wars stuff.
It's like a little bit ugly, but just sexy enough that you don't notice it's ugly.
Exactly. And when you see it, other plan views, it is thin looking. I mean, it is, the F-22 is a pretty bulky aircraft. That's not a good word to use for the F-22, but it looks pretty. Now, this
is the tail photo of the YF-23 now. Look at that. I mean, that is just sweet looking.
It's amazing. I mean, you see, I just wish we'd have built it. And I put my glasses on for this one, but you can see there is no horizontal stabilizer or vertical rudders. They're a combination. They're both angled back like this. And that cuts out a ton of drag because but now it takes a computer to fly it.
Yeah.
Because they're performing.
Or a really good pilot. Like, take one of the two of us or a computer. Yeah, you gotta have a really very well integrated flight control computer to make all that stuff happen, right?
Yeah. But that's a beautiful picture of that aircraft. And you can just see that was designed there again back in the late 70s. Now, I mean, that's just the rough design. It would be refined and honed over 2 decades before it hit production. And the internal parts would be nothing like what they were in the prototypes. Yeah. And that would still be a top-notch plane today. And China would have probably built one that looks just like it.
Yeah. It just blows my mind. This YF-23 is now in museums, and
I know.
This thing is just an incredible piece of tech. Imagine what is not in the museums. That's out there somewhere. But okay, so what's the play for China? Why are they displaying this thing during the day where they know, guys like us are going to sit around and BS about it? So what's the whole point? Why are they doing national pride, showing, hey, look at us? What's the play?
I think they like to focus. They just like look at this, and then I'll try to figure out what it can do. I don't think it's anything. It's a game changer is not the right word for it. It's very good. It's very big. It can carry a ton of stuff. Yeah, but it would be only effective in certain scenarios, and it cannot go head to head with our top line. Sure, and it certainly couldn't turn. Sure, it just I doubt that it's a 9G aircraft. Humans go to about 9Gs. That's about all we're good for. Yeah. I doubt seriously that that's a 9G aircraft.
Agreed. It kind of reminds me seeing the chase ship follow it around, like early on, being in the Strike Eagle myself, a lot of my friends went to the F-35. And when they went, the F-35 was G-limited to like 3-4 Gs pretty early. And they'd have chase ships of F-16s following the F-35. And I remember kind of seeing some of the footage they had, and the F-35 was maneuvering super slow because you didn't know, there were certain things they had to reach before they could put that much stress on the jet, before they could do some really good turns. So this to me looks like it's a one of one, maybe a one of two, And they're like, hey guys, be very gentle with this thing. We don't want to lose one. We've got some sensitive tech in the front. All the beeps and squeaks are what's really valuable about this thing. The worst thing we could do is pull G's, put this thing out of control, dump it in the ocean, and now we lose a whole bunch of money on the ASA advanced radars that are in the front of this thing.
I think you're right. We got to monitor that. We got to keep our eyes on this.
Yeah.
And make sure there's not something we're not seeing, and I'm sure we are. We've got experts, engineers analyzing everything about this thing with just those few pictures. And you'll have pilots who will then meet with those engineers, and they will come up with some fairly accurate capabilities of this machine. Most of them, though, aren't going to be readily apparent because it's going to be stealth. How good is the stealth?
How good is the stealth? That's the big thing. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. We got Bodie here. He'll be on a few more videos. Oh, he also happens to be my dad. Got to claim him here. I'm bragging a little bit. This guy's awesome. Got to see him as a fighter pilot growing up. Super awesome. If you guys would, please subscribe to the channel. It turns out, out of the millions of views on this channel, apparently 20% of you guys are subscribed. So please subscribe. It just helps grow the channel, and it would mean a lot to me. I'd greatly appreciate it. And then click on another video that'll pop up over here. Hey, it might be another video with Bodie right here. You never know. We've got all kinds of good stuff. We got videos on Russian jets and things like that. So check those out. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll see you on the next video.
See ya.